Watch this essay ad-free and catch its exclusive companion video only on Nebula. In the year 2023, it's not that weird that Wanted Dead has a karaoke minigame. Sure, it might not be the first thing you'd expect from a game that presents as a sort of hybrid hack-and-slash shooter, but the Yakuza games have helped us understand that even the most stoic men of the underworld can break down and belt one out. Years ago, Sleeping Dogs also threw in a karaoke minigame. Hell, even Disco Elysium features karaoke. If a game is going to include some recreational activities, why not let the characters show off their pipes? Now, the presence of karaoke in Wanted Dead isn't what makes it weird. The context of the karaoke is a little more bizarre. After finishing a level, a police chief gives the main character, Hannah Stone, some news that apparently makes her very upset, because the next scene is in a diner where she is not interested in her squad's normal conversation.
Shut the hell up, all of you!
And then, with no transition whatsoever, we're in a karaoke minigame. This kind of tonal swing is exceptionally common in Wanted Dead, so much so that it can make you doubt your understanding of what just happened. It makes it feel like you missed a line, or maybe even misinterpreted the entire purpose of the scene. How could we have jumped so quickly from there to here? But in the land of video games, that's not so unusual. They've got to introduce a minigame somehow. And hey, now that we're here, why don't we enjoy this introductory song of 99 Luftballons, a classic. It's not the most beautiful performance of the song. You can actually hear the actors laughing in the middle of the song, which is very cute, but also confusing when trying to nail the notes. The buttons you have to press have a very loud clapping sound effect, which barely lines up to the tempo. Occasionally, the song slows down, but the animations do not, meaning that the squad is going absolutely ape to a part with almost no beat, but even that is forgivable. These canned animations are probably made for a bunch of songs, and when you're concentrating on hitting all the buttons, you're not really watching the background. It's a video game. I know video games. After you sing, the game returns you to headquarters, and says that the karaoke machine upstairs will let you play this minigame anytime. And then came the moment, the revelation that Wanted Dead is operating on levels of strangeness far beyond the normal realm of video games. I went upstairs and realized that Wanted Dead does not have a karaoke minigame. It exclusively has a 99 Luftballons minigame. There are no other unlockable songs. There's not even a menu to select song difficulty or something. All of this animation, all this weird setup of the scene, all the effort of the two actors' performances, it's all in service of this, all so you can sing 99 Luftballons over and over and over again. Sometimes I make videos because I think I can draw some rich analytical connection between pieces of art. Sometimes I make videos because I want to learn more about a topic. But right now, this whole project just feels like some vain attempt to make some room in my brain, give myself a little room to think, because Wanted Dead has just taken up residence there. There are just so many choices this game makes. Big, bizarre choices. I don't hate the game. I might even like it. But more importantly, I just need to talk to someone about it. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's you. The loading screen across all of Wanted Dead is a recreation of this meme, the Super Hot Fire rap battle. What is Wanted Dead? The first descriptor that comes to mind is just a PS3-ass game. It's a game with a strikingly designed main protagonist, an accompanying squad of loosely sketched dudes, and a plotline about cops and androids. It's a game where you have both a gun and a sword, and you run through repetitive environments, shooting and slashing repetitive enemies. It has a skill tree, and it has a gun customization menu. Broken down to these component parts, it sounds aggressively standard, although maybe not for this decade. From a pure gameplay perspective, Wanted Dead's contemporaries are 2 generations old. Wet, or Bullet Witch, or NeverDead, or other games that have been similarly memory-holed. That alone, I'd argue, does make it interesting, at least in a conceptual sense. A game out of time, released 10 years late, or maybe at the very early end of a new wave of nostalgia. Mechanically, well, I guess it's the reason you haven't thought about Wet or Bullet Witch or NeverDead since 2009. It's serviceable. You're able to use both your sword and guns at any time, and so you frequently have to make the choice of whether to engage enemies long range or try to get in close. My love of swords in games is no secret, and I do think Wanted Dead is nicely animated, and there are a couple combos and techniques to pick from. But I feel like I've talked about this game for too long without actually giving you any idea why it's worth talking about. So I just want to show you a cutscene from the middle of the game. I'm gonna spoil this whole thing, I guess, but in this case, I don't think you should care that much about spoilers. Anyway, the third level of this game is a fancy nightclub, and the reason you're at the nightclub isn't particularly well spelled out, but that doesn't really bother me, because it opens with this ridiculously stylish cutscene. As the camera moves through the club doors, the graphics shift from their normal 3D presentation to a completely new aesthetic, one that reverberates with 2D anime flair. As this happens, the game starts blasting the opening synths to, what else, a cover of Maniac from Flashdance. Our characters move through the club past crowds of oblivious ravers, but then the song cuts out. The lights flash on, and we see, through Hannah Stone's eyes, these unexpected flashes of her past life. For a moment, she's lost in time, until her partner touches her shoulder and snaps her back to reality just in time for the chorus. I love this shit. It is disarming and evocative, and distinguishes Wanted Dead from just some generations late bargain bin production. There is effort here. There's panache. It's not just present in this one scene either. Hannah Stone is one of those perfect video game character designs. Sneakers, ripped jeans, one arm fully sleeved in tattoos, the other arm prosthetic, far too many straps and belts, necklaces, freckles. She too hails from the PS3-ass era of game design, and this time I say that with unabashed fondness. Every angle is going to reveal some quirk of her design, like her embedded metal knuckles or the turquoise tips on the cords she ties up her hair with. Even better than any of these elements is the fact that she's like 7.5 feet tall, and the game frequently puts her in scenes with normally sized people, and everyone is just fine with it. There's even a scene where she takes a shower. Actually, there are multiple, I'll get back to that. And you see that she has this back tattoo, an absolutely wild visual to give us for like 2 seconds. Cutscenes aren't the only place her aesthetic shines either. Her exaggerated design makes each animation stand out in combat, especially when rocketing from one finishing move to the next. Wanted Dead is full of visual style if you're looking in the right places. There's a neon-soaked arcade, this faux 50s diner, a robot that delivers ramen, a chainsaw weapon that slaps censored over a shower of viscera. There are the anime cutscenes, not just one, but several throughout the game, flashbacks to a previous identity presented in a way that makes them seem like they're from another world. When I say Wanted Dead makes choices, I often mean stuff like this. Why does this cyberpunk world have a 50s diner? Because having a scene here looks great. In a game like Wanted Dead, I don't need more justification than that. It makes the world of the game feel less default, and that goes a long way. But for every choice that's an overt boon to the game, there are others that are stranger. Wanted Dead chooses to linger in scenes far longer than what the action or dialogue seems to intend. After the first mission, there's a cutscene where Stone goes from inside the headquarters garage up through security, and that is a full 1:20 long scene. You watch this car go up an elevator for nearly 50 seconds. This isn't a loading screen. It doesn't happen after other missions. It's just process. And it's not poorly done, I should point out. The garage has enough little touches to keep it from feeling generic, and Stone unloading her gun here is a beautiful little bespoke animation. But this whole thing feels like it would be a part of, I don't know, Death Stranding? A game where the focus is process, where transitional spaces define the world? Wanted Dead never shows that garage, or even that car again. Wanted Dead doesn't have a button to reload the pistol, let alone worry about its chambered round. Similarly, there's a scene in Headquarters where Stone goes to the cafeteria and gets food, and the food is bad. This scene is also 1 minute and 20 seconds long. She picks up her tray. She sniffs at the fish head soup. It's bad. Even the cat doesn't want it. She tries to eat the honestly pretty good looking sausage and potatoes, no dice. The Jell-O sticks to her spoon. The coffee has a skull appear on its surface. I guess it's funny. The skull thing is a decent bit. I'm not some kind of plot dork that insists that all scenes must move the narrative forward. But this doesn't tell us anything about Stone either, or even about her headquarters. I guess the food is just bad? And let me remind you, the gameplay of Wanted Dead looks like this. It is not a methodical game mechanically. It is not a contemplation on the little inconveniences of everyday life, and so I can't tell you how many times I thought to myself, why is this still happening? In Death Stranding, Sam takes showers throughout the game as a reprieve, a way to separate himself from the muck of the world, and because recycling shower water is somehow part of the plot. In something like No More Heroes, the dull minigames arguably highlight how uninteresting Travis's life is without explosive violence. In Wanted Dead, Stone takes showers constantly because they gotta show off that sick back tat somehow? I've really tried to turn my analytical eye on this game, but I just cannot draw a thematic connection between the different aspects of it. This is the Heavy Troop. Here is a clip of me shooting 12 grenade launcher rounds, 60 AR rounds, and 100 SMG rounds into him before he goes down. If you look closely, I believe the grenades go straight through him, which is ironic because they frequently impacted against absolutely nothing and killed me. This feeling doesn't go away when the characters start talking, and the elephant in the room here is that the voice acting in the game is truly unorthodox.
If she comes through, she gets a nice raincoat. If not...
You could say bad.
We will figure it out.
Often it is bad.
On your knees, hands over your head.
But like everything else in the game, glossing over the dialogue as simply bad is missing a world of delightfully strange nuance.
Tower Synthetics is about to pull the plug.
What's obvious from the get-go is that a lot of these actors aren't totally comfortable with English. That's fine, but it feels like no one behind the scenes knew how to direct the actors either, because nearly every conversation has at least one absolutely baffling line delivery. I keep watching this one scene where the whole squad is in an elevator and Herzog, one of the squad, tells a filthy joke.
Dad, I woke up the morning after and suddenly I have 4 balls.
But the joke itself isn't the part I'm obsessed with, it's everything surrounding it. It's this little back and forth at the beginning.
The guy wakes up, massive hangover.
So,
massive hangover.
It's Herzog's expression when he says the line, 4 balls. It's how he delivers the punchline in a way I would never in a million years deliver that punchline.
Get out of there, son. You're being f***ed.
It's how everyone looks like they laugh at the end, but you can only hear one person lightly wheezing. And don't you dare ask if this scene has anything to do with the rest of the game, because you know it doesn't. Another bit I'm obsessed with are these 3 consecutive questions asked by the chief, which read less like he's asking for information, and more like he's never heard any of these words before.
What in the world happened here? Leader, a f***ing drone on a helicopter?
The actors aren't exclusively to blame. The script at times seems like it was written in a dream, dropping absolute nonsense lines into the middle of scenes.
Jesus f***ing Christ, you're an animal.
No, Stone, I'm a gourmet. Place your bet and let the Wheel of Fortune make a choice for you.
Both the words being said and the way they're spoken are so consistently unpredictable that it's very hard for me to tell when the game is intentionally deciding to tell a joke. In this scene where Herzog talks about ramen and the Wheel of Fortune or whatever, there's a moment when an Australian narrator comes in and starts explaining the history of ramen.
According to the record of the Yokohama Ramen Museum, ramen originated in China and made its way to Japan in 1859.
This is the only time in the entire game there's narration. We will never learn who that Australian ramen scholar is. And writing it out, that's pretty funny, but all the dialogue is already so alien feeling that the insertion of this new, completely unknown factor just lands with further confusion. Most of the actors in the game are German, and even the ones who aren't are attempting to do a German accent, which I'm just now realizing is probably the reason they chose to make 99 Luftballons the one karaoke song. Stone is voiced and modeled after a Swiss actor named Fee Marie Zimmermann, and this seems to be her first role in anything. And look, I again chalk this up to direction as much as anything, but she cannot convincingly sell a single line.
Identify yourself. What's your number?
I'm not spending so much time on this topic to be mean, but rather to highlight why Wanted Dead is not simply mediocre. Mediocre is the same stale characters yelling the same stale lines, "Yeah, get some," in dozens of identical games. This, by contrast, is cult classic level. This is MST3K, this is The Room, and just like those movies, you can say that Wanted Dead is striking out, but you can't accuse it of not swinging. During the trailer, there's a shot of Stone with cat ears. Apparently, you wear these in an unlockable easy mode after you die enough in the game. However, there were both bosses and level checkpoints I died at least a dozen times at, and no one ever gave me cat ears. A bright spot among the cast is the gunsmith Vivian, played by Stephanie Justin. Justin delivers the clumsy script with such a relatively high level of charisma that I originally assumed her and Stone were supposed to have romantic chemistry.
Either you gain weight or your rifle has to lose some.
I'm not giving up my mods.
Nobody's asking you to. Next time you make a not-so-rational decision to install upgrades from uncertified manufacturers, you give me a call.
Now, looking back, I think I assumed that because Vivian is the only character that ever seems enthusiastic about speaking at all. But Justin's presence has a metatextual significance as well. You might not have recognized her, because she's far more clothed and far more talkative in Wanted Dead, but Justin's major other credit is quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5. I don't want to imply that Justin got the role in this game only because she played Kojima's bikini sniper. She certainly acts circles around the rest of the cast. But I do think the decision to cast Justin is one of the many things that gives this game huge Metal Gear Solid fan energy. You can see it in the opening cutscene, dropping a truckload of information on international conflict politics. You can see it in the many overt riffs on Revengeance. Wanted Dead, just like Metal Gear Solid 4, features dystopian live-action cutscenes starring the actors from the game. You fight multiple mechs that basically look like rejected Metal Gear prototypes. Much like a Kojima script, a lot of the dialogue feels like the writer read something interesting in a book and decided to just have a character say it verbatim.
The anthropic principle is a philosophical consideration that any data we collect about the universe is filtered by the fact that in order for it to be observable in the first place, it must be compatible with the conscious and sapient life that observes it.
But unlike a Kojima joint, the world of Wanted Dead just doesn't have the mythological foundation to hold up to its surreal dialogue. There's more than one bizarre reference to real-world media and people.
There's more male nudity in your stories than in a Joaquin Phoenix flick.
I think this is a reference to I'm Still Here? I think? There's a news report where an actor refers to young people as millennials. The game technically takes place in 2023. It just doesn't quite hold together. This is a world where 7-foot-tall ladies with robotic arms fight androids with samurai swords, and also one where Joaquin Phoenix is still around and making movies? Reading the lore of Wanted Dead, hosted on the game's official Discord, feels like it's presenting an entirely different game. It's about new world wars and national periods of mourning and economic booms and depressions. I have watched every cutscene in this game multiple times. I have read every collectible document. I'm not getting half this stuff. Look, we're far enough into the video now for me to admit it. I don't get this game's story. I understand parts of it, but as a whole, I have a really hard time even tracking the plot from beginning to end, and I feel stupid. I really do. I feel like I should be able to crack this, and it feels like huge pieces are missing. Here's what I know. Hannah Stone, as well as the rest of her squad, make up the zombie unit of Hong Kong's police force. That means that they were all pulled out of prison to be cops, and you can actually find their rap sheets. The opening scene of the game is Stone in prison, and she's taken out to, in her words, pull some trigger in the name of democracy, which is honestly a pretty great line. The cops seem to be almost totally funded by a private company named Dower Synthetics. That company makes synthetics, basically androids used for cheap labor, as well as various weapons and other stuff. The early missions are essentially working as stooges for Dower, defending their buildings and putting down an android uprising. During this uprising, you fight its leader, and capture another android who talks about having her memory wiped several times. She says that, hey, Stone could be an android too. Who knows? What's Blade Runner? With this knowledge, we can talk about the other big part of the narrative, those anime cutscenes. These are flashbacks that hit Stone at random moments walking around the police station, as well as in that nightclub. These show her as a teen, a young mom who can't afford medical treatment for her son. So she signs a shady contract with a company called Continental Standard, who promises to care for her kid. In return, they will give Stone a white-collar job at one of their locations, and then she'll wake after a year, not knowing anything ever happened. So, you can see how these two things connect, right? The android being interrogated was right, at least partially. Stone had her memories wiped, and instead of returning her kid to her, Continental Standard exploited her and made her... And this is where I lose it. What did they make her do? Remember, the game opens with Stone in prison, so they made her do crimes? Made her into a terrorist, as it says on her rap sheet? And after all that, she was pulled out of prison to be on the zombie squad? If this is the case, was she supposed to end up in prison, or was that an accident? By the way, the scene where Stone signs her life away is literally an after-credits scene, so you'll be completely in the dark until then. The lore on the Discord suggests that the people that make up the zombie squad aren't just simple criminals, but prisoners of war, the implication being that Hong Kong is using the POWs from its last major conflict to buff up their police force. This would explain why they're all German, even though they're working in Hong Kong. But then, did the company that memory wiped Stone use her as a soldier in that world war? Was Continental Standard on the losing side? As part of a pre-release marketing campaign, Stephanie Justin starred in 5 different cooking show segments as Vivian. The show, Vivian's Late Night Chow, made such dishes as tonkatsu, berry crumble, and lasagna. Intermixed with the cooking instructions, Vivian does sponsored segments for fake products and drinks frequently. My review of her lasagna is... My confusion about all that pales in comparison to the final scene before credits, which takes place in an old hotel room. Stone dials the phone and calls what sounds like an orphanage. The voice on the other end tells her she can't keep calling. Doesn't she understand how cruel it is to talk to her son? The voice says that all the kids tell stories of their parents coming back to pick them up any minute now. Stone says she wants to take him, and the voice says that they appreciate her donation, but that's not how it works. They say that she's just not reliable enough. Then her kid grabs the phone, says some kid stuff about crushes and math tests, and then the call ends. Stone cocks her pistol, presumably because of the troops rushing down the hall outside, and then... credits? On my first playthrough, I yelled, "What?" out loud when this happens. It is so disconnected from the finale of the game, a fight against the chief of police in a Raiden suit. It's equally disconnected from the Android Uprising storyline the game had been following for hours. Basically, everything here is new information. Who are these units rushing down the hall? I don't know, and this also completely deflates my theory about Stone having her memory wiped by the company that took her child because she calls them all the time? Apparently she visits every few months. Now it just seems like her work-life balance is messed up and that's why she can't see her kid. But what's more frustrating than any of these contradictions is that taken on its own, I would go all the way to call this scene good. There are real emotions on display. The scene is gorgeously composed. The aesthetic contradiction between bionic body parts and old dial telephones is really cool. I even like the idea of Stone hiding somewhere and trying to re-establish a human connection before real life breaks down the door and reminds her that the world has molded her into a perfect killer. This scene did not happen by accident. No one lucked into creating something this compelling. But where is this in the rest of the game? And where is the rest of the game in this? I keep describing this game as frustrating, because it'd be so easy for me to get Wanted Dead out of my head if it was, in fact, just mediocre, just an uninteresting game. But time and again, the game refuses to do the easy, boring thing. Instead, it chooses something stranger, something that may be completely tonally out of step, but nonetheless makes it impossible for me to ignore. Something that I and other grouchy writers will occasionally complain about is the idea of design by committee, that every single decision about a game, or movie, or TV show, is made not out of artistry, but because that idea has been focus tested and market proved and has the highest likelihood of yielding a profit. I'm oversimplifying, of course, but I look at every living game, every new free-to-play flash in the pan, and I think, I know there are human beings who poured their lives into those games. I know intellectually that this is the product of passion and talent and artistry, but I look at it and I can only feel the overwhelming influence of market forces pulling us towards a smoother, duller, more uniform future. And maybe that's why, despite myself, I'm charmed by the jagged, confounding choices of Wanted Dead, because there is no committee in the world that would recommend creating a karaoke minigame where you can only sing 99 Luftballons. There is no market research that recommends an incredibly vulgar street joke about a guy with 4 balls, or investing this much in performance capture for an actor who can't deliver a line, or ending a super hype hack and slash game with a cutscene about how we'll never get to see our son again. I don't think we'll hear much about Wanted Dead after this. I'd be shocked if it popped up in any year-end discussions. I doubt it'll have enough name recognition to warrant a direct sequel. But sometime in the future, Maniac will come on the radio, or I'll hear an Australian talking about ramen, or another game will have a cool sword lady with a robotic arm, and in those moments, I'll think about Wanted Dead, a game too bizarre to fully recommend, but too distinctive to forget. I'm gonna cut right to the chase. I made Vivian's lasagna. In my vain pursuit to fully understand this game, I thought, they've given me an entire recipe to follow, maybe that will deepen my understanding. I'm not sure it did. I'm not even sure it deepened my understanding of lasagna.
Please use the good tomato paste, not the hipster one.
What is hipster tomato paste? But I documented the whole process and talked through some more bits of this game that didn't make it into the main essay, and that all is in a video that's exclusively available on Nebula. Nebula is many things. It's a creator-owned and operated streaming service. It's the only place you can see a whole catalog of experimental essays and other videos from me, and now it's also, and I'm so glad to finally be able to tell you this, an incredible way of supporting me. See, when you sign up for Nebula using my link in the description, a significant amount of that money goes to me for as long as you're subscribed. Not only is Nebula the only place you can see me make Vivian's lasagna, it's one of the best ways you can ensure that all of this keeps happening. Nebula is just over $2 a month when you sign up using my link. With that subscription, you can see my whole 30-minute long cooking video, all of my other exclusive vids, Philosophy Tube's play, whole classes like this one on filmmaking by Patrick Willems, Maggie Mayfish's awesome new series Unrated. The list goes on. Support your favorite people directly by signing up to Nebula and watch me cook a recipe that no one could deny technically produces a lasagna.
The dance